I welcome to 17th World Education Summit. I welcome all the speaker and esteemed dignitaries from the PEN India to share their innovative ideas and thoughts and give their precious time to us for the 17th World Education Summit. I would like to introduce all the panelists to my audience. So this panel is going to about the discussion of aftermath of COVID-19 and how the crisis is going to impact school education. So it's all my pleasure to welcome our panelist, Mr. Harish Sanduja, Director, School State Anandam Jaipuria Group of Educational Institutions from Ghaziabad. Welcome, Harish sir. Thank you for joining for 17th World Education Summit.
Namaskar.
We have Mr. Swam Satanju, COO, ODM Educational Group from Bhubaneswar. Welcome, Swam sir. Welcome to the 17th World
Hi.
Education Summit.
Hi.
And we have Mr. Nirmal Vadan, Miss Nirmal Vadan, Principal, the Kalyani School, Pune. Welcome, Vadan ma'am. Welcome to the 17th World Education Summit. All our pleasure.
Namaste, sir, and good afternoon to each and everyone present here.
We have Dr. Seema Negi, Principal, Sanjeevani World School from Mumbai. Welcome, Dr. Seema. Welcome to the 17th World Education Summit. All pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
And Dr. Seema Negi is the moderator of this panel. She will moderate this session, and I will hand over this session to Seema Negi after this introduction. And I welcome Dr. Amrita Vohra, Director, Principal, El Pro International School from Pune. Welcome, Dr. Amrita. Welcome to the 17th World Education Summit. So we are going to discuss on the topic aftermath of COVID-19 and how the crisis is going to impact school education. So I would like to request to Dr. Seema to moderate this session, and we are looking forward for this wonderful session in the ahead. And I request all my audience to drop your questions in the Q&A section. We will take it live if Dr. Seema Negi seems interested to take it live. Over to you, Dr. Seema.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, all MPART panelists. So, a big responsibility Abhishek has given us that we need to ensure that we get questions from audience and we take them. So we will do that. Now, each one of you, as we are getting ready for reopening our school, we have seen that our children have adapted to a very, very different scenario where when it was their age to play, they confined it themselves to the four walls of their home, and rather than playing the games in mobile, now they are more focused on going ahead with their teaching learning module. At the same time, we have how teachers have embraced the new technology, which sometimes they were not very happy about or they were reluctant about in the past, which has become old normal, I think, or old age school. Each one of you as an educator, as a have led your team, you have set examples, and today we are here to discuss your story, what you have done. So I would request to please share something that you have done so that our audience will have a good takeaway from each one of you. So let's begin without wasting any further time. So let's start with Harish sir. So Harish ji, I would like to know from you, as we all are getting ready for this new normal, what will be the new normal for a school? Do you think things will drastically change and there will be a 360-degree change, or new normal will just become a term?
Thank you, Dr. Seema. I think it's pretty interesting for us how the world is going to see post-COVID. So, just to place on table some of the statistical details, as far as I know, as per the UNESCO reports, what had happened was that there are around 24 million children who are impacted by the COVID. And because of that impact, what is happening is that on an average, we are looking at around 1.5 to 2% children across the board who are getting impacted. So I was just looking at our school, and if you have 1,000 children in your school, you will be able to see around 10 to 20 parents who are not able to pay the fees properly. That is one impact which is happening of the COVID on the education of the children. Apart from that, what will happen is, as soon as when we start helping out these children and reaching out to these children, the post-COVID scenario is going to be of the blended learning immediately, because I can see that when a large industry or a large thing stops, then what happens is to restart it, you need to overcome that inertia. So the inertia has to be kind of taken into consideration. I don't think so that immediately in one go the whole schooling system will start. So what will happen is that it would be a better idea that the schools start in small chunks, and then have blended learning and make sure maybe odd students with the odd roll numbers come on the odd days, and the students with the even numbers come on the even days, and then do the blended learning. The IT is going to be the backbone of the school now, as it has already been seen by everyone. One of the most important thing that will happen is that the schools will have to follow the standard operating procedures that we have seen as per the government guidelines. So all those standard operating procedures for the safety and the security of the children have to be taken into place. And then the schools need to start, especially from the senior classes, and then you can build in the junior classes coming in over. But what will be the most crucial thing is that the IT learnings which have happened, and uh, these IT learnings are going to stay, and they are the ones which will be very, very crucial. Like the children, if we are decreasing 50% of the strength in the class, then the 50% of the strength which is at the home is also going to be catered at the same time by an online live class that should happen. So, what is important in this whole scenario is that, of course, the transportation is going to get a big hit of any school, because the transportation is going to, because I can see that most of the people who were involved in the school transportation have either moved on or have looked for another system of getting their own uh, both ends meeting for the month, because these people have their own systems, and most of them have moved on for some other kind of jobs. So getting the transport department back into the school and getting the children back to the school is going to be a concern in due course, and it will take some time and more planning for the school to bring the children back. The other important thing which I feel is going to be the way the school is going to manage the sanitary processes within, because no matter what you say, the kind of experience that the world is going to have with the various vaccines is not going to be immediate. It is going to take still around 5 to 6 months, and by that time we will go on to the next phase of, or the next year of the session. And that time, what is going to happen is that we will still require people to have blended learning. So institutions should not think that the whole institution is going to get into the system in one full go. This is something which is important. And the last thing which I would like to share is there will be a lot of people who might require some help, like I have seen that in our schools there were some genuine parents who required some kind of financial help, and we were supposed to be kind of rising onto the occasion, and we reached out to such parents and made sure that the children did not kind of stop their schooling because of this. This is something which is going to be extremely important for the entire system, where we reach out to such people and cater to the assessments, the processes of assessments that we have learned in this COVID time. Because a lot of schools have gone with some or the other new process of assessment, which was either online. Like, we definitely have gone to a very higher extent of assessment, that we have customized the assessment of the children, and we have brought in 100% transparency into the system, where the child can see his or her own answer, what they wrote, and what was the ideal answer that they should have written, and how many marks were given to that particular child. So all that has now become very, very transparent because of the IT processes that we have brought into the whole system. And we think that these are good changes and they're going to stay for a very, very long time, because parents' expectations are now increased as per that. So this is what I had to say.
So
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
thank you, Harishji. You have actually summed up everything, how we are moving ahead and what is the way forward. And definitely settle soon. We will have to rework, and it won't be just plan A, but plan B, C, D. Everything needs to be ready. At the same time, I think institution like yours and others who are value of empathy, they are trying to reach out to each and every parent, because at the end of the day, we all believe that no child should be left behind because of any financial crisis. So moving ahead, I would like take it forward to Dr. Dr. Amrita, Mr. Harish also spoke about how things change and how we have to now look at the things from a different scenario. So I believe classroom will need to be reimagined. So to reimagine a classroom, to maintain social distancing and also to maintain that, okay, you have to wear your mask, and at the same time going ahead with blended learning. Are we ready for the new change? Are we empowered? And if we are, how are we going to implement it? From planning to implementation, what is the journey?
Thank you, Seema. So that's a very nice question. And yes, Dr. Harish has mentioned and summed it up very well that the future lies in blended learning. Then when we talk about blended learning, the logistics bit of it that you're referring to, yes, we need to look at the sanitization. We need to look at how children are going to maintain their social distancing, how we are going to make the seating arrangement in the class, how we are going to project the same information for children who are sitting back home, and the part strength that is there with the school. I think that bit of it is manageable, because it is just planning the logistics well. I would like to draw your attention to a slightly different angle, that today we have realized that our education has been embedded more in the past and has been a little backward looking, by way of, okay, history, beautiful, this is what happened. But right now, what is happening, the present is also very much there for them to understand. But somehow we have ignored the future as to what are the possibilities that children could come up with by way of situations, and how they have to cope with that. So revisiting of curriculum, I think at this point of time, is more important than just looking at, like how the classrooms are going to be and how the logistics are going to be planned. We've discussed that staggered attendance, limited students there, giving ownership of, following the SOP also should be with the students. Like, for example, in my school, children have come up with an AI-based, solution to, once you enter, you'll be pointed out, are you wearing the right kind of mask, and is the mask in place? Otherwise, the entry will not be permitted. So they built a software around that. So these are small little initiatives which help children to kind of take the ownership of following the norms which are required for today's, situation. Coming back to what I was saying, that can we look at, better readiness for future? Now, okay, a big question, how are we going to do it? We could embed, this futuristic outlook in our day-to-day lessons and teaching, and this is what we are planning to do. Put a deck of questions, what if questions at the end of each lesson. That, okay, this is what you studied, this is how normal bacteria or virus behaves, and what if something like this happens? Now you're going to come up with, a whole lot of assumptions, solutions, and we are going to have a very productive discussion. Maybe it is just 5 minutes. We don't want to put that entire 40 minutes into discussions, but yes, we have to trigger that kind of a thought process in the minds of these young students, so that whenever something like this comes up, they are not taken aback like we all were, that, okay, oh, this is something that we never thought would happen. So that is, I think, the way forward, that revisit, redesign the curriculum, take a look at, what we are doing and what more we can do by way of an additional arm, so that children are better prepared for the future. If I can give you one more example, Seema, that
Sure.
What if you have, a council which is called a contingency council in the school, maybe in each class, and they are the ones, then they come up with these assumptions and solutions. and prepare a list, like, okay, what if this happens? This is how we are going to react to it or respond to it, whatever. So that is, I think, the need of the hour, and we need to look at it.
That's very well put up, Dr. Amrita, because what if is really needed to be introspective, and usually what happens, we do not deal with these kind of questions. So what is needed is we need to prepare our children for uncertain future. We always use speak about it, but I think this pandemic has taught us that uncertain future can be just next tomorrow. So we need to be ready for that. So moving ahead and taking it forward, Ms. Swayam, I would like to know from you, from your expertise. Now, we all know that schools are gearing up and has taken all the necessary measures and precautions, but at the same time there is a huge gap when it comes to say urban and rural setting. We have seen a lot of children dropping out. Even in urban areas also we have seen a lot of children dropping out. So how do we manage this scenario? Are we going to leave those children behind, or we will bridge the gap so that everybody can move forward together?
Hi, Dr. Seema. Thank you so much. It's a very, very genuine question and a very genuine concern as well. So, very rightly put, dropouts are not an issue today in the urban sector with private schools, with the awareness, rural sector. It's going to be a big issue tomorrow. And that issue, I believe, is majorly going to happen because of two reasons. One big thing is actually the lack of awareness in parents. That's one part. And the second is the financial hardships that the parents would face in the rural areas. So those things have to be tackled from the root. So let's say, I believe once these schools start opening up in a phased manner from the higher classes to the lower ones, so I believe the government should start having those awareness campaigns back again into picture of sending students back to school. That's one part. In rural areas also, as we see today in tier 3 cities and tier 2 cities, the schools are divided. There are a lot of English medium schools as well, which provide CBSE based or ICSE based curriculum. At the same time, we have a lot of government schools. In government schools, the financial hardship is not a problem. That's where a lot of awareness and a lot of deep-rooted exercise is required to aware the parents to get the students back to the schools. In the urban, like in the schools that are present, in the English medium schools that are present in the rural areas, I believe government should look at providing some kind of stimulus package or financial package to help them support the financial hardships. Because the truth today is the rural people or the people in those cities are the most hit, and they're the people who are most dependent on a lot of jobs, and they are the people who have lost the jobs. So those kind of intervention from government, those kind of awareness from social help, like help groups, NGOs, from people like us is very much required, or else the concern stays pretty valid at the same time. Like dropouts will be on a higher rate, and we have to do something. So that is my take on it, that these two root issues have to be tackled right from the root level. So that's it from
Very well said. Yes, it has to be tackled from the very root level. And I think, again, each one of us sitting here today are doing our bit, but our bit can be limited. Yes, we do understand we are just a drop in the ocean, but then if everybody comes together and it is dealt right from the root level, that small bit will become a big, mighty ocean. So moving ahead with Ms. Nirmal. Ms. Nirmal, we have spoken about how we are going to open the school, what will be the logistic, but at the same time, important torchbearer of education system are teachers. Our teachers have gone through a very, very different kind of skilling, upskilling, reskilling, learning, unlearning. They have gone through this journey. Now, it's few areas it is becoming difficult for teachers also now to come back to or to adjust to this normal, because many of the teachers we have seen, like, they are taking sabbatical from school. So how do we prepare our teachers for this new journey, and how do we prepare at the same time our parents for this new journey who have now started going back to their work? So the children are alone and the responsibility teacher has become more. So how do we prepare them?
I'm very glad that you spoke about the teachers, because the journey has not been very easy for the teachers. And coming back to school after such a long absence will not be easy. We have to get back to the normal life, which has already changed much beyond recognition. No one knows when the mask will be off our faces, when we will again hug and shake hands with our students. the students and the teachers will have to again learn the rules of socializing. And the teachers actually have faced a lot of emotional ups and downs also when they were with their families in the house. Some of them, I'm not saying all, they have also witnessed a lot of dramas also. Some of them have gone through financial struggles. I know that some of my teachers' husbands lost their jobs and they took permission from us to start English speaking classes in the evening at home virtually, and we have given permissions to them. The teachers have to be again counseled along with the students when they join back. We have to hold the orientation sessions for both the teachers and the students to maintain the emotional quotient. And everybody has witnessed some or the other drama at home, and many of them have witnessed the financial struggles of the parents also. And when the teachers know about a student facing such traumas, they will definitely know how to deal with them, because every teacher is basically a counselor. And we will have to hold a lot of sessions first to make them acclimatized with the present normal, and the teachers will have to use richer tools like the advanced tools which they have learned in this normal. And a lot of blended learning will have to take place. And I'm happy that all the staff have been well trained in a lot of advanced tools, and I'm sure the teachers are going to continue using them. We have to ensure that the teachers use blended learning and use a lot of creative activities when they come back to school, so that the interest of the students is maintained properly. And technology has to be used compulsorily without exception, and the children have to be assessed both online and offline also, and all the tools have to be used what the teachers have learned in the current scenario. But I strongly believe that the COVID-19 is going to stay. I shall not be wrong if I'm saying this. We shall never forget the 2020, and while this year will go down in the history as the most denounced one, we teachers shall perhaps look back and forgive it a bit for the legacy of learning techniques it will leave behind with us. So that's all I would like to say for today.
That was so very well put. Indeed, teachers have left a legacy behind, and we will never forget teaching fraternity who was not given the status of corona warriors, but we are fighting a different battle. Yes, we might not be at the forefront, but we are fighting a very different battle wherein we are balancing with our families, also balancing with our students' families, also students also. Yes, maybe our efforts are not unseen, but yes, still not unrecognized. At least we as a leader, if we recognize our teachers' effort, one day the entire country will do that. So moving ahead, there was a very good point you spoke about emotional quotient and managing that. So I will come to Mr. Harish again. Mr. Harish, when we speak about the academic rigor, I think all the schools are doing, and you are doing it very well. You spoke about the various assessment tool that your school has designed. What about the emotional need of children? Because with this new normal, the emotional needs have changed. Studies have shown children are going into depression. They are not able to cope up with some of the sessions. Parents are becoming more frustrating. So how do we move ahead with this? And what role school has to play? All the educators watching us today, what roles they have to play to reach out to the children?
I think it's very, very important that the schools teach children things about social emotional learning and how to take care of the mental health. That is extremely important. Because what has happened is that people have started doing everything online. And human beings being social animals, what has happened is that our interactions have got limited, and especially of the children. So it's extremely important that we teach our children that this is a passing phase and it will go off. And at the same time, they need to have ample amount of physical activity so that they are keeping themselves healthy. Otherwise, we have noticed that a lot of children were having some or the other kind of problem because of less amount of physical activity And at the same time, some children felt that they were quite lonely. Now, because they were not able to meet people, and that was some concern. So, I strongly believe that social emotional learning, being aware of oneself, the need to keep oneself healthy mentally, and to make sure that mental healthiness is essentially an outcome of physical well-being also, so that the children are able to have someone or the other as a mentor, if not anyone in the family, someone in the school who is able to help the child out, is an extremely important step. So what we essentially did was that we made sure that we had some or the other type of sessions happening with the counselors in the school with different classes, so that those children who needed help can reach out to those particular counselors, and they can definitely help, and they did help them. So those were very important steps that were taken by the school. And in this particular time, we felt that this kind of need turned out to be a bigger need for the children. And many of the younger children, especially the age group band between around 9 to around 14, they were not able to voice out also. So they were, it was essentially important that the teachers reached out to them through their families or through the counselors, so that these children, in case they felt any kind of depression or any kind of need of reaching out, then it was identified and people were able to help them out. That is what I think was very, very essential.
That's really very essential, because we need to reach out to these children, because again, as we say, the future of the classroom is groomed, the future of the nation is groomed in our classroom. Now our classrooms have turned into screen. So coming to you, Dr. Amrita, as our classrooms have turned to screen now, so what happened to play? Play is the most important way of learning. So how are you dealing with this play quotient or the play method, how you are involving your academics with play or your play with academics?
Yeah, very, very, very important to keep that aspect in mind. One is, of course, like, Harish just mentioned that the wellness bit of it has to be taken care of. So, like to ensure that there are wellness sessions that are on, and also to make sure that children buy in, that kind of methodology. Why? Because you can have a wellness session and there's nobody attending it. To make sure that engaging the learners in a particular activity, which could be, yes, for physical fitness, it could be for kind of a play way of studying. It could be an activity where the learners have to like probably make something or put things together. What we have to ensure is that, yes, put these activities in your daily timetable, but also ensure that the engagement of learners, that happens on a regular basis. And a very good way of doing it, at least what happened in my school, and I thought that that was really helpful, was that we put a mentor teacher with every 10 students. So those teachers were then reaching out, connecting with students and asking them how they are, gauging how the children are feeling, making sure that they're part of all the activity-oriented learning, offerings that the school has. So that made sure that children were constantly up and about, were not in the state that we were just talking about, totally not involved in what is happening, or probably because now they're put in a box at home. So, like the mental well-being also comes into account. So I think that if you constantly are in touch with students, if you can gauge how they are feeling, if you can keep them engaged, if you can, ensure that they are with the teacher and also are kind of, with a lot of energy engaged in the classrooms, I think we'll be able to sort out a lot of problems that many of us would be facing in the virtual scenario.
True, and as rightly put up by one of the panelists, all our teachers are basically counselors, because they are dealing with the children day in and day out. So taking this forward, Mr. Swayam, I would like to know from you that we have spoken about teachers, we have spoken about students, but there are many parents also who are feeling many lows in their life. we could see, like when a teacher is taking a class, she could identify that this particular house there is some problem, or this parent is not in the right frame of mind, because many a times we have observed many things in front of the screen. So you as an educational head, how you have empowered your teachers to deal with these spontaneous things, wherein something happened right in front of them, and in fraction of second they do not know how to react to that. So how you have trained your staff for that?
So actually, that's again a very nice point to talk about, and I'll share our experience how we deal with this. So the best part that has actually helped us in the process is our own mantra of operation. Like we have, be it with our staff, be it with the teachers, be it with our support staff. One thing has been very clear for last 4-5 years now since we adopted this. The thing has been that we can at no position show any amount of unprofessionalism to the outside world, to the parents or to the outside guests or anyone at all. That is a mantra that we have been operating with. So be it COVID, be it non-COVID, that's how we had molded ourselves to operate. The thing was put into test during the COVID times to a maximum extent possible. What happened when classes came online and we would find something or the other kind of an interruption coming and disturbing the teachers. But the best part was because we had been operating with that mindset that no matter what, our thing can't look bad like to the outside world, and that led to the teachers actually were pre-trained for this kind of a thing. But of course, we had some kind of quick discussions, quick intervention among the teachers, where we kept on highlighting the fact that, okay, if something like this happens, you need to deal with it professionally, come up with the solution instantly. And there were other teachers who were facing challenges in terms of coping up with it. That's exactly where we put our senior teachers to train the junior teachers. So it was more of a peer learning that we adopted to impart this thing outside. One big thing that we did was we have our academic directors and academic heads into place who keep on monitoring these virtual sessions day in and day out, like as and when it proceeds. So anytime we found something, there were situations where minor errors were committed, but then quick feedback mechanism was built into place, and the feedback mechanism was instantaneous. It can't be like something happens today and we give a feedback about it 20 days down the line. So it was instant feedback, which led us to instant, resolution of the problem. That was another thing that we adopted in the process. One big thing that also came into the picture was during this COVID time. What happened was when online classes were learning, we actually found out that we could actually use a lot of other time with the teachers in the virtual world to train them and counsel them better. So we as a school, we as a group, we as an educational group running a group of schools, what we did was we hired a couple of counselors and run this training the teacher, training the teacher program that we are running. With that, what we did actually was we made it mandatory for all the teachers to go through the program in the after school hours. It was a 3-day program that was running per week, so 3 hours per week that the teachers had to give to the whole program. And with that, there were 8 modules, and the modules actually focused on dealing with separate kinds of situation that the teacher would face, be it with a parent, be it with handling an adolescent kid online, or be it with handling those kids who are staying absent for a long period of time. So for each kind of a scenario, we came up with you can say that we came up with our own SOP, standard operating procedure. We kind of taught the teachers on that. So to sum it up, there was peer learning, there was supervision, and at the same time, we had training in place. So, and our own mantra that we have to be professional to the outside world. I think that helped it a lot. So that is how we manage the situation out here. And I believe all our fellow panelists here probably can take some learning out of it as well.
That's beautiful. When we handhold each other and we move together, definitely success is going to follow. So coming to you, Nirmalji, I would like to know from you that, see, we spoke about counselors, and Mr. Swam also spoke about hiring a lot of counselors so that the emotional well-being and the mental well-being of our children is maintained. What about the special learners? Are we able to reach to them? Are we able to cater to them in this new kind of learning environment, or have we left them behind? Would like to know from your expertise. You need to
Dr. Seema, the reason is in our school, we have not left them behind. we have a special department called as a pastoral care, where we have counselors and special educators. We've got 3 special educators in our school, and the children who need help, remedial teaching or academic support, all have been identified. And TKS has also been tied up with an institute in Canada, and our teachers are going to be trained for inclusion. A lot of special education has happened online, uh, from our special educators taking classes post school hours. The children were attending the normal school, but after 2:30 they were having special classes, one-to-one classes with the special educators, and they were being trained. In fact, if the children needed extra support, the parents have also been contacted via telephone calls. WhatsApp groups have been made, and the underprivileged children, especially for them, we have made WhatsApp groups. We have also donated a lot of instruments to them, and we've ensured that the learning is never stopped for any single child, may it be a special child or may it be an underprivileged child. And we know that the students have to be in regular touch with our teachers, so continuous conversation is happening with them and the parents also. In fact, I wanted to also say, even during the lockdown, when the second lockdown was there, and since our school is in a rural area, we could open little bit, and with permission from the parents and with permission from the Gram Panchayat, we have called 2 or 3 children in the school who did not know how to use technology. Even the parents have been trained. One-to-one, we've given appointments to them, and the teachers have really worked hard, especially the special educators and the teachers who've been handling the underprivileged children, ensuring that there's continuous learning and no child is left without learning in the school, and the gaps have been covered. And if you still feel there are gaps, we are ready for it, because we know that we have to give an extra time to those children, and teachers do care calls to the parents. We have homeroom time, we have circle time, during which the children open up, and when the children are speaking in the class, the teachers can judge the learning, what is happening at each student's end, and those children's parents are called, and after school hours we are giving academic support and holding special classes for all of them. So I think my teachers are actual corona warriors. They worked really hard, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart.
That's so beautiful. How proud you are of your teacher can be seen in your voice, the way you are putting up your entire experience. Now, the last question, which is a common question for all of you, and again, very important from our audience point of view. You have to give us one success mantra to reopen the school post-COVID. What do you think will be bang on success mantra, which you feel you can share it with the entire world? So starting in the same order, Mr. Harish.
I think it's important that we are able to uh, get the school organized in such a manner that blended learning starts. Initially, we may not start a transportation system, but the blended learning in the class needs to be started. So each class must have a equipment where you can actually transmit whatever is happening in the class to the homes of the children, because there will be some children who will be in front of you and some children at home. So this is something, if we can kind of do it, if when the children are not there in the school, we must practice this thing, how we are going to execute this whole thing. This will be the most important mantra for the success of the next few months. So the blended learning is going to be the important.
So blended learning is here to stay, and each one of us need to adopt to this new normal. So what do you have to add, Dr. Amrita, your success mantra?
With blended learning, we have to focus a lot on the asynchronous learning along with the synchronous piece that we will be delivering to students. That if we give them some reading material, use the flipped classroom way of teaching a little, so that they read up a little, come a little more aware to classrooms, can participate in discussions, that would kind of, contract the screen timing into a very productive hours. Because what happens in the normal classrooms is that the teacher teaches, probably take some time off, discuss a few things with the students. Now, students who are back home may not be completely, engaged into those classroom conversations. So I think we'll have to make a classroom delivery more crisp and make sure that the asynchronous bit of the learning also is stepped up a little. For that, of course, we'll have to make efforts to create the right kind of reading material to make sure that we sensitize children before they step into a class and make that limited time that we have really, really productive.
It's wonderful. So now we have Mr. Swayam. Mr. Swayam, what is your success mantra?
This is something I keep reiterating with all my staff who keep asking us what to do when it opens. I'm going to share the same thing here. So the idea is we have to keep the children as priority number one. The hygiene, the sanitation, and the education standards. And on the other hand, we have to be pretty open to adapting anything and everything that's required to ensure high level of hygiene and education standards. See, today sitting here, we can actually keep speculating on the fact, okay, what's going to happen, how we're going to plan. The truth is, when it has to open, we run schools in Bhubaneswar right now. There is no absolute communication about anything opening up, even for the 10th grade or the 12th graders. So when it actually opens up, the real situation is going to be much different, or might be much different than what you have planned. So as long as our goals and priorities are set, and here the goals and priorities are the students' health, hygiene, and the education standards, we pretty much have to be adaptable as educators, as schools. We have to be adaptable to do everything else that's required to ensure those two priorities. So that is what I would pass on.
Very
Yes.
true. We need to adapt to the way things are changing. Yes, Nirmal ma'am would like to know your success mantra.
I strongly agree with Mr. Swayam. We've spoken about the health standards and education standards, and along with Mrs. Vora, we have to maintain the blended learning, both the asynchronous and the synchronous, and also that we have to ensure that the activities go on and the children feel interested. The children used to put heads together earlier and share their secrets. We have to let them know that because of your safety, you cannot do that. And I can only say that have patience and ensure safety. And whenever the time comes, we are there for you. So be there for the children whenever they need you. And most important is keep them happy, maintain the emotional quotient very, very honestly for all the children and the staff also, because even the teachers have gone through a lot. And I think this would be the success mantra, because academics can always happen, but first you have to be happy within to do academics. So that's what
beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
I would like
beautiful, because happy children equates to happy teachers equates to happy parents, happy school, happy management. So it's happy everywhere. So now, to wind up, I would like to ask one thing, because these days we are talking a lot about empathy and gratitude. I think the pandemic has given us these two words to now implement. Okay, now if you have to express your gratitude to anyone, who will be that one person or one organization or your teachers? So whom do you want to express your gratitude? Because trust me, each one of us have learned something during this pandemic. It's not that we have gone behind, we are moving ahead. So whom will you express your gratitude? Starting with you now, this time let's start with Nirmal ma'am. Yes, Nirmal ma'am, starting with you. Whom will you express the gratitude?
My gratitude first goes to the Almighty, and secondly to my director, Mrs. Diksha Kalyani, who has been the rock of Gibraltar for all of us. Many schools have seen that there were pay cuts in the teacher's salary, but our school never. We have done everything for the teachers. We've given them appraisals, salaries are on time, and in fact, we've gone out of our way for our Teachers' Day. We have sent them gifts with their photographs embossed on the mugs with the chocolates, so that they feel nice that the gift is personalized. And during the Diwali vacation also, we send them the mithai by courier. So all these small things what we've done for the teachers, I'm very grateful to my management for taking the steps to do all those things and ensuring the resources are never stopped. And my third gratitude goes to my teachers. for being the corona warriors and ensuring that my children are happy and the parents are counseled whenever they need to be.
That's beautiful. Yes, Mr. Swayam.
Here, my gratitude goes to all the stakeholders of the organizations. To start with, my non-academic team that actually helped us manage the complete tech system to immediately adapt to something new. The teachers, I mean, nothing would have been possible without them, very honestly. Like, for them, as Nirmal ma'am keeps talking about, the change has been huge. Like, they're adopting to something like this in such a short span of time. My biggest gratitude goes to them, to the parents and the students also, for not creating. They could have easily stopped paying fees by complaining that it's an online situation, but they did not do that, understanding and acknowledging the fact that the teachers have to be paid. And more than that, they have been a support. They had to, a lot of families here had to purchase an extra device, extra laptop, invest on the internet bandwidth, and they did all of that. So the whole stakeholder, all the stakeholders of the education system have come together. Without even a single one of them, the fight would have been much difficult. So my gratitude goes equally to all the stakeholders out here for supporting us through the tough times. So, yes.
Wonderful. Dr. Amrita. You need to unmute yourself. Dr. Amrita, yourself.
Complete agreement with what Swayam was saying, that it is the school community, all stakeholders, parents who supported us beautifully, students who adapted to the change, teachers who spearheaded this entire initiative. And, I think school community needs to be applauded. All stakeholders have done their bit. And that is why today we are sitting here and happily looking back and seeing how learning has happened fruitfully.
Mr. Harish.
For me, what happened was coincidentally our promoters were looking for initiating a teachers training academy this year, and it turned out to be the best thing that happened for us because we were able to train our teachers. And I would like to kind of put my gratitude for all the teachers because they were also ready learners, because the speed with which they were able to kind of switch on to the technology, which came through Samartha Teachers Training Academy of Research, which was floated by Jaipuria Group. It turned out to be an extremely big benefit for not only the teachers of our school, but also of the state of Uttar Pradesh, because a lot of other teachers were also trained in a lot of other software systems that were utilized. So I would definitely like to thank those people as well, as because they were the ones who built up the capacity of the teachers, and in turn, it turned out to be a big help for the students as well as the parents. And at the same time, I would like to thank the entire parent community for kind of making sure that they were there with the school at the time of the need. Thank you that way.
That's lovely. And I would like to express my gratitude to World Education Summit for giving me such empowered panel. I would like to tell all the audience, we understand, we sitting here as a leader, there are so many things we go through every day, but we ensure that if there is some trouble, if there is some challenge, if there is some problem, that should not reach to our students or our teachers. We are like a shield between our teachers, our students, and our parents, and each one of the education fraternity or all the stakeholders of education. I think they are very, very important for us, and they are very dear for us. We spoke about each aspect. We did not leave anyone behind, whether it's a special child or a deprived child or a financially not capable parent. We are taking everyone together. What is needed is we need to maintain that vision. We need to maintain that enthusiasm, because whatever might happen, we have to go ahead with the flow. And Mr. Swayam has spoken about adaptability. Adaptability is a new mantra. You cannot become water, you have to become river, and you have to keep on flowing. So we all are flowing together towards this new normal. It will be difficult, there will be challenges, but what is life without challenge? And we as teaching fraternity have shown the world, come what may, we will never leave any child behind. And with this, we end this panel. If there is any question, Abhishek, we are ready for the questions. And I'm proud that we have maintained our time.
Yes, ma'am, you have already mentioned the time. There are some questions that I will take it offline afterwards, ma'am. Actually, we will take it for the only 5 minutes have left. So by this, we are wrapping this session, and I thanks all my panelists for giving their precious time and sharing their ideas. And there is a speaker certificate, a token of appreciation from the 17th World Education Summit to Mr. Harish Sanduja, Director School, State Anandam Jaipuria. And Ritambara Chauhan is not able to join today, so we will welcome. And Mr. Swayam Sitandu, CEO, ODM Educational Group, Bhubaneswar. Thank you, Swayam sir. Thank you for joining 17th World Education Summit. Nirmal Vadan, Principal, Dakkadyani School, Pune. Thank you, Nirmal ma'am. Thank you for joining World Education Summit. Dr. Seema Negi, Principal, Sanjeevani World School, Mumbai. Thank you, Seema ma'am, for this joining World Education Summit and wonderful moderation. And we have some offline question. We will ask Sumit from our team. We will share that question to you, ma'am, and panelist that has question. And once you revert, we will get back to these persons. And I also request all the audience, if you have any question, you can directly follow the social handles of our speakers. They are very much active on the social handle as well. You can directly coordinate with them, directly put their questions. They will revert you soon. So by this, we will wrap this session and we will go for the lunch break. Thank you everyone for joining 17th World Education Summit.
Thank you everyone.